By wisdom a house is built, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Proverbs 24, 3-4. Good morning, ladies. I'm Mrs. Sherman. Welcome to Homemaker Radio. I designed these videos for you to listen to. There isn't anything here to watch. This is why they're so long. I try to make them an hour so you can get something done. I always enjoy your comments telling me the list of all you got done while you listened. And I want you to stay here long enough and watch while I show you my teacup for today. And today I am wearing a set of jewels given to me by one of my children, and the fastener in the back of it wasn't working, so I had to use one of those twist ties from a grocery item, one of those pieces of wire about so long that's wrapped in white paper. And that's why I let my hair down today, because it covers that little twist tie in the back. Do you ever do things like that? I grew up on a homestead in Alaska. We had all kinds of innovative ways of making things and having refinement and beauty in our home, even in hard times, even in the wilderness. And so many of us later on, when life was a little better, we clung to some of these ways which we enjoy because of the creativity. But I created these videos so you could work and get something done, and I try to make them last about an hour. But before you go, I'm going to show you my teacup, and it is just the cutest thing. It's a leaf for the saucer. I can't remember where I got this, but it must have been in the early 2000s, and the cup is shaped like a flower. Has a bit of a flower on the inside, and then on the stem looks like a stem of a flower with a little flower on it, and there's a little spoon that goes with it, and we actually have used these. I bought two of them. They might have come from Victorian Trading Company back in the day, but I'm thinking they might have come from a different catalog. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Is it time for me to be locked up? I can't remember anything. You know, when we were younger, in the olden days, and we would come out of our room because we thought of something we wanted to do or get, and we'd come out and we just drew a blank. And our mother would say, go back to where you first thought of it. And sure enough, that always works. Go back to the place that you first thought of the thing that you were looking for or the thing that you wanted to do, and it will come back to you. It works every time, doesn't it? And I wanted to know if you do that too. And so today I have a lot to talk to you about. The problem with waiting too long to get back to videos is my list just gets longer and longer. I've got so much paper here, so I need to stop maybe every day. And so today I would like to talk to you about comments. If you like, you may put them, but I'm not asking for them anymore. I'm not saying please leave me a comment, because these things take time, and I don't think that we need to spend more time looking and typing and just working on the web. And I have decided that if you want to and you have the time, you may leave a comment, but I'm not desperate for you to leave your work. So if you have something you want to fold or you want to, put away or do, then I would suggest that you go do that. But let's start with your appearance at home. Now, I noticed something years ago, and it was a terrible mistake, and it only happened once, but I realized what I had done wrong. I had gotten up and got the idea that I needed to do some kind of paperwork at the table. Maybe it was paying a bill or writing a letter to someone or answering something back in the olden days, and my children were younger and maybe teenagers, and I didn't bother to get dressed or to take a shower or get breakfast. I just was headed straight for the thing I was the most inspired to do at the moment. That's the way artistic people are, isn't it? They always want to catch the light or do something because they were in the mood. And I didn't get dressed, and I was sitting there writing something, and some of the children were milling about, and then they started to become very fussy. And of course the whole morning was a disaster, and the night before I had not prepared or found out whether there was anything available in the pantry or the fridge to prepare for breakfast, and they felt less cared for, they felt less loved. And Also, I think you'll notice that if you don't get up and you don't get dressed, that your family will be fussy, or there'll be an argument, or there'll be a blow up. And that's the quickest way to make it happen. It's like Murphy's Law, and somebody will come to the door, or something will happen that will mean that you are going to be pretty embarrassed for not getting, shower, get dressed. And if you want to have respect of the house and respect of the home, there's not just some place that people come to lay around and do nothing and have no purpose. If you want respect for yourself and for the home and for each other, then this is one thing we learned in homeschooling. The very first thing was they were to be prepared for the day. They didn't just walk around in their pajamas all day just because they were home. This is a very important thing, to make sure that everybody is presentable before they come to the dining room, or before they come to the common family room, and make sure yes, we want to relax at home, and there will be times when we can do that. But one of the things that really helps for respect is for you to have enough self-respect to respect yourself, and to respect God and what He has done for you, to respect your home and even your country by dressing. I always think that it is always a very negative thing for ladies to go around in town looking just like they got out of bed, and wearing stuff that actually could be, your night clothes or pajamas, because these days they all look the same. And because it's a bad message about how you feel about your home, about yourself, and about your country too. So if you want to have respect for your country, then dress up. And certainly we have some good examples in some public leaders, some political leaders. They dress up when they're on the microphone or when they're talking to people. They're dressed up. They don't show up in clothes that are so casual. And how you dress is an expression of how you feel about yourself. Now today I'm sitting in, I know I told you to go, but if you're still watching, today I'm sitting in a little room that I created inside of my living room. I knew we would need a table for a tea table that would be separate from the dining table. And so I know I have a backlight here because that's my front window, and I wanted to film in here. But that's what you see is my tea table. This is where the ladies come and sit around for tea after we've had Bible class, which we are still carrying on. And so let's get back to your appearance. And once you have got dressed, you can turn this off before you go, and go get dressed, go get ready, fix yourself up, try to look a little happy about life. And these are really the best days. These are the best days of your life. You could write a book about what's happened the last couple months to you in the home, what you've learned, what you've progressed in, what you have accomplished. And even if all you do is teach your children how to get dressed and be presentable, and how to even if you just teach them good manners, and that's all you accomplish, it's a great thing. They will be different. And I read somewhere that on somebody's video on the comments that this was the first time her children had really, really relaxed, because they weren't subject to school searches and overhead announcements and all kinds of fears and schedules and things. Children should be brought up to have a happy, carefree childhood, free from worry and heavy responsibility. What do we do when we send them to those schools? We push pressure on them. They're under pressure from the time they're 5 and 6 years old, or even younger if they go to a daycare, because they're so regulated. And this makes it hard for them when they're older to think for themselves and to regulate themselves and to have self-control, because they always want to have a bunch of rules. And we've been around people like that. We've had them in our home where they've been brought up in a certain way, and they don't know how to construct their day, and but they're very good at trying to construct your day and trying to instruct you. And this is an interesting phenomenon. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit today about besides your appearance. I think this appearance is so important. If that's all you get done, at least do that. And I can remember times when I've been sick in bed and someone came to take care of me and suggested I go get a shower. And then while I was in the shower, she would change my sheets and remake my bed. And then I would get all my hairbrushes out and my cosmetics and fix myself up. I'm telling you, it helps so much. So no matter what kind of day you're having, you could just start over if you haven't done that yet, because it makes such a difference in your day. Now, I've made so many crazy notes here that we're probably going to flip from subject to subject, but my next subject is the home. And so when you become a homemaker, I think it's very important not to look tired or bored or to feel invisible. Don't do the things that make you feel invisible. I think that's where appearance comes. Because why is appearance important? Well, the Lord knows it's important. You can go from Genesis to Revelation and find references to appearance, just like you can economy, like I've been talking to you about, because it identifies us. Our smile identifies us. Our teeth, our everything's so unique. And so that's why appearance is so important. You don't want to do anything to detract from the part of you, from your face. Don't do anything to detract from your expression. If you dress very badly in a dull way, doesn't matter how nice you smile, it's going to be rather distracting and detracting, and it lessens the message, I think. Will you think about that for a while, okay? On what message your face gives and why you should learn about colors and whether they enhance your expression. You know, you minister from the face, from your eyes, and from your voice, and from your expression. You minister from that. That might be the only ministry you ever get to, because you know people aren't real. They're not going to walk up to you and say, "Tell me how to be saved." They're not always. That doesn't happen to very many people. But the message in your face can say a lot, and you can tell what people have been programmed by or listened to by the expression on their face. So when you become a homemaker, and a lot of you are going to be staying home now that you know you can do it, when you become a homemaker, you might have to rid yourself of the preconceived idea that you're going to have a lot of approval and a lot of friends, and it's just going to be great because you think it's great. There will be people who won't like it very much because you've left. What is it says? Is it First or Second Corinthians that says they don't like it because you run not with them? You've become an individual and you're going a little bit more of a different way, and a lot of a different way. And you might think, if I could only find a kindred soul, somebody who is just like me. And so you'll get in a church and you'll look around and say, well, none of these women are like me, and you don't understand that what you have is a mission. And so stay in the church and stay in there and live your beliefs. And that makes a big difference. Don't expect to find all these kindred spirits. Don't expect to find a mentor. Become a mentor. Don't look around for someone to walk alongside of you. This is what the family is for. This is what your children are for. You're making your future social life. So the home is a place where you can almost soar with SOAR, with creativity and with freedom, because there's no one there to regulate you or restrict you. And so you have to just appreciate the home life as an artist would appreciate a blank canvas or freedom of color and design. Or you have to start to think like a self-employed person. That might not have ever occurred to you, but a self-employed person. Now, many of us have had husbands that have been self-employed their whole life. And the other day, Mr. S um, came out to see me wherever I was in the house. He always has to hunt me down, you know. And he said to me, it just occurred to me, he said, my dear, you know, my father used to say, yes, dear, how are you, dear? Do people talk like that anymore? he said, I always appreciated that you get up and get dressed up in the morning. And I looked at him, and he was shaven, and he had a button-down shirt on, and his hair was combed, and he smelled nice, and he was ready to go to his office, and no one had to tell him to do that. Isn't there a proverb that says, be like the ant that even without an overseer knows how to prepare its food for winter? And talks about the comey and other types of little animals that take care of themselves and don't have to have someone bossing them. And so a self-employed person has to get up in the morning and get dressed as though they were going somewhere important and going to do something important. And these men that have been self-employed, of course, I live out in the country, and many people are self-employed because of their land and because of the things that they create and sell, and they get up and they get dressed and they get ready, whether or not they're going to be working with people or not, and it makes a big difference in your success. And there was a book called years ago called Dress for Success by J.T. Malloy, and it was written to help people get jobs and to succeed in their jobs, and it had a little section in there about the self-employed and how they also found that they did much better business, much better productivity and creativity when they got up, got a shower, and got dressed. And this is what you will teach your children in these days at home. And teach also, you homeschoolers, teach them that's the first thing you do as you get dressed. And then you also begin, life at home will be a little chaotic at first when you're not used to it, with nobody's home with you and they're gone all day. But it'll settle down into a routine. If you'll just observe, it'll settle down. And one thing is that you have to work around people. Let's say you have a schedule today. You want to get your dishes done. You want to get the beds made. You want to clean up. I heard of a lady recently who decided they were just going to clean up their whole bedroom, and they cleaned their mattresses and turned them over and cleaned under the bed, washed all the bedding and the curtains and cleaned the windowsills, and she felt so much better. But I would say you can do all that, but you have to learn to work around people and not wait until the house is empty before you start doing something important like that. Just work around people. You'll be flexible. You just, somebody come in and want to talk to you, and you can keep working, or you can go do something else, maybe fix a lunch, and you just go back to the step and just keep doing it. And you just work around people, and you work with people around you, because you cannot wait until everybody's gone in order to clean house. The advantage of this is that you learn how to work around people, and they see you working and they pick up your habits. That's why it's so important to have your children around you. It's really also important. I know a lot of men are home now, and they get to see what the women do all day, and that's very, very good for them. I remember a friend of mine, her husband was sick, and he wanted to lay out on the couch. He was recovering from something, some illness that he'd had, or he'd been in the hospital. He was home now, and he wanted to come to the living room. So he came and, laid down on the couch, and he wanted his wife to come and sit down and talk to him. And she did for a while, but she says, I've got to get dinner ready. And then she'd come and talk to him a little more, and then she had to go do something else. And then she had to go and to keep the house going the way that it should and make it comfortable for him. And so finally he said, it isn't what people think it is. The women are sure busy all the time. And the next time he got to not feeling well, he never asked her to come and sit down, because she just couldn't do it for very long. So I want to say to you, don't allow the house to deteriorate just because everybody's home. To put everybody on a feeling of being on automatic. I don't know what that phrase is, but you're just on automatic, and you automatically pick things up. Everybody picks up after themselves. Everyone keeps it neat and tidy as they walk down the hall. Pick it up, don't pass it up. Anything that's out of place, straighten it out. I watched a friend of mine years ago, and I was fascinated with her. She was brought up in Scotland by a very Scottish mother. My husband's mother was a Scottish woman, and this woman amazed me. She would get up to go to the laundry room, and there was a hall, and she would just pat something in place as she went by and put something away, pick something up and toss it out, and just uh, she just cleaned as she went. She was just on automatic, and she was very young, but she had that bred into her from the time she was very young. It doesn't make you a hard person to live with. It doesn't mean that you are not a warm, comfortable person. No, I think people have tried to tell us that oh, if you're really strict about your home and you want it clean, it just means that you're not a very relaxed, homey person. That's not true at all. But they try to make it sound like you can't be both. And so I want to go on to about not allowing your house to deteriorate. Learn to work around your family. Make sure that the dishwasher is loaded at night and turn it on just before you um, retire. And the thing that I like is to turn it on just before I go to bed and fall into a sleep, because I just love the sound of that whir and the noise of the dishwasher, just like somebody's working out there and it's not you. So I want to also this I'll just be skipping around here because I wrote so many notes. That's why I should probably come more often. So I'd like to address the subject of how to wake up happy. Now, observe yourself. Keep a little diary beside your bed and find out what you the days that you feel happy, and kind of it's hard to be real scientific about this because sometimes waking up happy depends on what happened the day before, the week before, what kind of rest you had, whether you dreamt something or not, and whether your sleep was interrupted, whether or not what you ate the day before. Who can tell? You'd have to really have I know people that keep these health diaries, and they will tell what they ate, what the weather was, how they felt, how their body felt, just different things, so that they can trace some kind of chronic illness that they've had, so they could just kind of trace it back. I've done that before with sleep and discovered that I slept better when I had worked hard the day before and was happy with my work and had made some kind of progress in something that had been bothering me. So I want to talk about how to wake up happy. Now, one of the first things we learned in homeschooling was no alarm clock, and I will tell you why. Because it jars the sleep progress and the process. It jars it, and often people are so stunned when it rings that they don't know where they are. They don't know, they can't focus. I think it interrupts brain function. I'm very much against it. But if you will, go to bed when you're absolutely tired. I don't care if it's 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night or even 5 o'clock. Go to bed when you're tired, when you're sleepy, when you're not functioning well, when really you're not making any progress, you're just sitting around waiting for bedtime. Go to bed as soon as you feel like you could fall asleep. Don't set the alarm. And you will find that you'll wake up with the birds. You'll wake up with nature. You'll wake up like when you're supposed to wake up, and your brain and body start functioning better. Even your digestion works better. This is the wonderful thing. You people don't realize, I don't think, what a great gift that you've been given by staying home for a month. In fact, I think the month of April should be like the Passover, and it should be a remembrance, and we should have a month off every April, just to rest our land, rest our minds, and just recuperate our businesses. The businesses in town are so clean now. I mean, they've had time to really, really clean and make everything lovely. I see them. I ask people that work, I said, the floors are so clean, I can see myself, and they say, we have time to do that now. There are not so many customers around. But what a great gift we've been given. And I think we should set aside April as a month that Americans don't work, just vacation. And of course, if you vacation, then the people that work at vacation resorts have to work. But just somehow set up a memorial for April. You don't realize what a great gift you've been given. And I want to talk a little bit about what I'm seeing around me here. I did write notes, but I'm not good with notes. I'm just mostly good about what I think, and I've tried to collect my thoughts. Now, what I see is people riding around on bicycles as families, and the happiest person in the bunch is the father. and the yards and the properties are beautifully manicured. The gardening centers and the stores where you go get your seeds and your plants are busy and thriving, and there isn't anything wrong with our supply chain. The trucks come in just in time and unload, but if people panic and there's a raid, then the shelves go empty when they normally wouldn't. And so there are seeds and plants, and everybody's, there's winter crops too. Some people are still harvesting their winter crops. You can actually grow food in the winter, and certain kinds. You could look that up and study that. That might be something you want to do. Those of you who are just starting homeschooling, why don't you just start out with them doing something like planting, and read to them. Just read to them. And art. I've talked to you about art. I don't have the extra art books. They're way over there, and I don't want to get up and get them. And just read to them. Just read to the children. I used to walk around with a book sometimes, and the children would be busy doing something, maybe even just playing. And I'd say, listen to this. And I would read them something out of a book just to help them to think and imagine. And when they grew up, they would follow me around the house or come into the kitchen where I was cooking and say, Mom, listen to this, because they had discovered something. So if you'll teach them with an air of discovery and an attitude of discovery, you're going to have a whole different response from them for learning. And of course, we want to be discerning in what we learn. Whereas if you go into a public school, you can't approve or disapprove what's being taught there. And if you're a teacher, you're not out of work, because you could be very useful. Just get a hold of some of those old McGuffey readers. You can get reprints of them so that they're brand new, and find anything. And I would like to bring to you a Victoria magazine sometime from 1989, when we didn't have curriculum. In the day we didn't have curriculum. I would get one of those magazines, and I'd open it up and find a history article, or an article about an author, or an article about a garden, or a park, or a plant, or there'd be so much variety in there. Articles about textiles. I love textiles, and I have the fabric to prove it. But try reading to them. Try doing art, and I mean, seriously, not art just to pass the time, but let them appreciate it. Go online and find art pictures that are pleasing, and also there are many different things you can do with this idea of art. Now, we had a set of readers called the art literature readers. They're probably out of print now, but you might be able to find them. But they had little instructions in the back to the teacher, and I believe the teacher was probably, the mother, and it would talk about a painting, and they'd have a picture of the painting in above a story. And of course, this is all black and white print, not very pretty. But yet, the children really responded to that, and they said, what is the child in the painting doing? Can you imitate this? And so your children would sit under a tree or something with an apple or whatever was in the painting, and try to look like the painting. It was so much fun to take pictures of them, or for them to draw pictures of each other doing that same thing. And that's what we used as our guide to learn for art composition and subject matter. So, how to wake up happy. We're back at that one. Okay, how to wake up happy. No alarm clock. Okay? To be happy, you have to start the day before. And I would suggest that you give yourself a day off from media, because even some of the conservative, I would say, alphabet channels, they can hype you up too. Take yourself a day off from media. They are not your horoscope. They are not your prophet, but yet people tune into it more than they do the Bible. People listen to media more than they pray. People listen to media more than they teach their children. And I think you should just stay away from it. I found another video series that I really like called Monica Rose, and she just does the home arrangements and shows some of the things about the home. And I don't think there's any speaking, and it's just nice music. And give yourself calmness during the day. I will tell you something else that I noticed when I was out, and I go out every day in this area. We haven't ever completely shut down here, but I go out every day, and the things that are missing in the stores is what that's how I do my research. I go to stores, and there's these variety stores like Walmart, Mart, various things like that. And the things that are missing, something very interesting, is the cooking ingredients are missing before the next shipment comes in. That usually is the first thing that's wiped clean. All the different flours are gone. All the different like yeast and baking powders and things that spices, they're all gone. Okay, what I figure is happening, and of course, you know what's left? The cake mixes. Nobody's buying them. They're just like sitting there, and who wants them? Even at the Dollar Tree, the little bags of flour are gone, but the cake mixes and cookie mixes and the commercial cookies are sitting there. So here's what I think is happening. People always could cook and bake, but they didn't have the time because they were running children around from various one activity after another and school, and taking them to and picking them up or taking them to the bus location. And now they have the freedom and the time. The other thing is people are able to sleep in without the aid of an alarm clock, are still able to get up naturally, and they're inspired and they feel good. Now other things that are missing are now they had this big thing about only buy essentials, but to us in America, everything that makes you feel good and everything you like is an essential because we believe in happiness. So the things that are missing are the home decor items. I have noticed, I had my eye on this little lamp, and I thought someday I'm going to buy that little lamp, and it's wiped clean. The lamps are gone. But of course, we have our products. They'll be coming back. And a lot of home decor items, frames, picture frames, and the candles and the just decorative things like vases and all the flowers. And I just noticed that was, those are the things that are being bought. Blankets and sheets and bedding. There'll be a new series of bedding. There's this bed in the bag where you can get your comforter and you can get your pillow covers and a set of sheets in there. And I'd go there one day and the next day they'd be all gone. So what people are doing is they have time now to get their home the way they want it. And so they are, and the dishes, everything. And of course they're renewing things. And the paint, the people that work in the paint area of these big stores are busier than ever mixing paint. And people are standing in line ordering paint. So what they're doing is they're redoing their houses. They have to live in them now. They know what it's like. So now they're wanting to fix them up, and they didn't have time before. Now, so the day starts before if you want to wake up happy. So if you want to wake up happy, then I would suggest the day before you get ready for that wake up happy day. And catch up on your ironing, catch up on the clutter, sweep. Sweeping is very interesting. It has something to do with the brain, I'm convinced. If I'm feeling like I'm not making any progress on anything, on my sewing or on my, that room, that storage room, or the bookshelf, and I'm not making any progress, but I put off sweeping because really I should be doing this other thing, I just can't seem to get any progress made. If I'll stop and sweep, it's amazing what it does to the mind. Now, the hand engages the mind. So sweeping or cleaning out something, clean a drawer out, sort something, sort a box of papers and pencils and pens, if you still have those sort of things. We, from the olden days, we still have those antique writing instruments. And so now, so catch up on your laundry, and prepare for bed, and then prepare your list for the next day. Have a nice cup of tea before you go to bed. And if you have not had your tea today, I would suggest you get yourself a cup of tea and in a fancy teacup and treat yourself to that. And some women will just give up. They'll say, I'm going to have tea time for my family, but then uh, somebody just messes up the whole idea or makes it unhappy, and so she gives up. But I think if you'll keep on doing it, they will change their attitudes after a while. And there has to be some way to create refinement for your family. So to prepare for bedtime and to wake up happy, do not look, listen, or read any kind of major news. The news network, what I'm talking about, um, all the leftist media and some of the right. And I have two favorites that if you still think you need it, is Black Conservative Patriot. I just love his videos, and Ron Paul. Now, I have recently noticed that one of the ones that I recommended, what was her name? Amazing Polly. I just happened to look at one of hers yesterday. Don't recommend it anymore. You never know about people, You think they're just like you, and they think just like you, and then you'll catch them smoking, drinking, or swearing. And so there goes another one that you can't recommend. And even some of these beautiful homemaking videos, clean with me and everything. Next thing you know, they're doing something that, well, I guess my kids can't watch that one. And so you just have to take it into consideration. So waking up happy, make a list for the next day, and goodness sakes, I wrote something I can't read. So the other thing is to sleep and just until your body says you have to get up. And if you do get up and it's fairly early, 5, 6, or 7 in the morning, don't go back to bed. And so wake up happy. I think it's really important. Also, observe when you do wake up happy. What is it? What is it that did that? What are the things you did the day before? What were your thoughts? What did you watch? Who did you talk to? And so at home you can produce your own freedom, and you don't need to be restricting yourself from being creative, improving, and enjoying the home and doing the things that you love. Don't restrict yourself from the luxury of a cup of tea. Don't restrict yourself. Now I see sometimes women on, when I watch the homemaking videos, their homemaking is just wonderful. It's fun to watch. It's called Clean With Me, and they have beautiful houses and just beautiful stuff. But then they will pour themselves a glass of wine or have a can of beer. And I think, why didn't they pour themselves a cup of tea? Ladies, this is wonderful, and it's not going to corrupt you or your family in any way, and it's not going to cost much money. So one thing that you can do to wake up happy is to refuse to live on fear. I had a list here. Are you living on stress? Are you living or functioning at home on nervousness or tension? That is not good for you. And I've had experience with the news media, and I know that I can tell when they are lying, and so can you. And it's usually when they're talking or when they have their mouth open. You've got to realize. Now somebody will say to me, well, how can you say that the news media is always lying? What about the flood that was in Tennessee in 1999 and they told about it? I said, yes, but even a broken clock is, right twice a day. Is that one of those old sayings? So don't trust the news media. Now use the time at home to make progress, and also settle down with yourself, if there's just you, or your family, and say, how have we improved today? What have you done? What have you learned or done today that has helped you improve? And you can even teach them how to get along with one another, how to speak to one another so that it's not here's what we did. Now I've had my children home most of the time and homeschooled them almost from the beginning and through high school. But one of the things that becomes a habit, you don't even have to have the public school to blame for some of the stuff that you guys do at home, that you all do at home that cause trouble. And one of the things that, I wasn't here before and I hadn't had kids before and everything was new to me. And Like, for instance, I never had a 6-year-old before my child was 6 years old. I never had a 10-year-old, never had a 12-year-old. So everything was a learning thing for me, too. You have to teach your children that mother is growing and learning, too. And one of the things they would do is somebody would say to one of the other children, do you remember where you put such and such? Or could you help me find such and such? And they would say something like, yeah, I know where it is. What is it they would say? I know where it is, you dummy, or something like that. And so, or I know where it is, don't you know anything? Something like that. And they just enjoyed, children all over did this, they just kind of enjoyed being superior in some way. So what we had to teach them, and we had a little book on character that talked about this, what we had to teach them was answer a question. When Jesus said, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, nay, don't say no, stupid. Don't say, well, yes, you dummy. Say, because what you're doing is you're adding the little insult on the end. Don't add the insult on the end. Don't say, yes, da 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 da, say yes, and glad to help, or something like that. But don't put people down. Avoid the little tag on, the little insult at the end. If you've got that habit, stop it immediately, and your children will love each other when they're grown up. So to wake up happy, avoid banal conversation, rehashing things you've already talked about. And this is a problem I think ladies have always been concerned about, is people that want to talk to them about something and then bring up the same thing over and over. So you're forced to sit and listen to a conversation that's extremely unstimulating and boring. And we want to do something. We want to grow, and this isn't going to help. So use the time to create progress. Get prepared, get dressed, have a hot cup of tea, sort out something, and refuse to watch, listen, or read any kind of major news media. And that's how to wake up happy. But observe your own, because yours might be slightly different. Now, every morning, get up and give thanks and praise to God, the way that I read to you about the Icelanders in the 1800s. Give thanks and praise to God for the day and for your life and for the life of your family. Remember to pray for your children, too, before you go to sleep at night, every single one of them. And you can gather them around you and pray for them so they hear what you're praying for. Because when you're praying aloud for your children, they know what you wish for them. They know what your goals are, what you want for them. Like, for example, if you have a child that's having a trouble, let's say they are biting their nails, or they're worried about everything, you could pray to God to help them not to worry so much. And don't be using prayers to put people down, of course, or to bring up things in front of each other that would make them feel ashamed. But to pray for them, and also to ask God to help your family to be happy. Ask God in front of all of them to help you to be able to carry on your responsibility towards them and to keep you all safe. And I have to tell you a few things here. That I was talking about sewing to someone and saying that they were asking me, have you sewn anything lately? And I told them a few things, but that sewing had to come from, you have to feel inspired. It's an artistic thing. You can't just sit down and sew, because it's not like labor to most of us. It's more like a creative thing. And I had to remind this person that because I said, I'm so happy to have portable sewing machines. And she said to me, what do you mean? Because she didn't live before portable sewing machines. I lived before portable sewing machines, and you couldn't move them around. And later on, they put wheels on those big things, but still wasn't very convenient. But I enjoy having a portable sewing machine, and it's lightweight, and I just lift it up, carry it to whatever room I want to be in. If I want to look out the front window and watch for the mail or a package, or if I just want to be in the kitchen while something is cooking, I put my sewing machine there. And so, but sewing isn't something that I do every day because it has to be something that I feel, and it has a lot to do with art, I think. It has a lot to do with inspiration and design and that sort of thing. And I also think that working at home, you also have to remove and overcome the fear of the dread of work. It does not have to be a drudge. It does not have to be that way. That's why I'm making these videos, make you happy. But I knew a lady years ago, she said she would light a little candle in the window, and she would, which is a scented candle, and she would put on some music, and then she had this scented dishwashing soap, and she would wash her dishes by hand, and she had pretty towels to work with, dish towels to wipe them with, and she enjoyed it. So you have to learn to enjoy it and remove the dread of work. I never punished my children with work because work was something to be desired. Work was our capital. Yes, we're just a bunch of capitalists. And so that is just something you want to think about. And I have a few more notes here. So approach work with dignity. That's why this coordinates with the beginning of this video, and that was getting dressed. Give yourself dignity. So dignity, not drudgery. So you're dressing up for this work because it's dignity, not drudgery. And I asked somebody would they like to come over for tea the other day, and they said, "Oh no, we can't go out." And of course, I had forgotten about it because I'm out here in the country. We go out, our little town is open and everything. Everybody's walking around, and it reminded me of Mrs. Gibson. Remember Hyacinth? And the Miss Brownings had seen Mrs. Gibson and Molly and Cynthia in town, and they were so glad to see them. They said, "We want to invite you to our party tonight." And Mrs. Gibson said, this is in Wives and Daughters, "I hardly like to let them go. They're not out, you see." And Cynthia said, "Well, until we're out, we're not capable of good behavior." So there are some people that are not out yet. So they aren't out, And I wanted to talk to you a little bit, since I didn't really mention this in the appearance part, in the getting ready part. And that was the hat. Now, this was interesting to me because I was talking previously about a way to greet people without having to shake their hand. Now, I'm sure that a lot of people thought I was unusual because I've been a preacher's wife for almost 50 years and I never liked shaking hands. It's possible that you just didn't have to shake as many hands as I have had to. And how much I would have liked it to be the Jane Austen style, where the ladies bowed their heads and the men tipped their hats. And I thought about the hats for ladies too. When ladies wore hats, and some of them were like real hats, they were more like a fascinator, like on a headband, and it was just a little flower or something. How interesting those were, because if you had a hat on, it drew the eye upward to the top, the upper part of your face, and the top of your head, and how less need there was for cosmetics. The hat was the cosmetic. I've been looking at hats from from before and from the olden days, and how pretty they were, and how they could, the color of them or the style of them could brighten the eyes or brighten the cheeks, or just enhance the look of the lady. And I just think that they are such a good thing. But we were also told in the olden days to wear hats because it had something to do with your health, and to cover your head was really, really important. It may have had something to do with your body heat, I am not sure what all was involved. I know some of it was. And so I wanted to tell you a couple of things before I go today, and that is how the state shot themselves in the foot by shutting down people and sending them home from work. And first I want to say, there's no real shutdown if the trucks are still driving past. If you see trucks on the highway and they are loaded with products and goods and the supply chain is still going, there's no real shutdown. And the farmers, of course, never quit. They don't pay any attention to it. They've got to get their crops in, get their crops out. Then they've got to um, reseed, replant, all that stuff. I see it all the time. They're busy all the time. But there are two things that are really important to us as a free people: transportation and communication. Transportation and communication. And I believe God planned for those two things from the very beginning of the Bible. The fact of coming and going freely and communicating were very important, because if you can come and go freely and you can communicate, you can teach the gospel. You can teach things, principles to your children and to your family and to other people if you can communicate. So to shut down a nation, you have to shut down transportation and communication. And that will be what they will mess with next, because when they found out how they shot themselves in the foot with making everybody go home, and how it increased communication in families and strengthened the home and shut down their old propaganda areas like and it's interesting, they didn't shut down the news media. Isn't that interesting? But when they shut down the public schools, the families started enjoying each other. They started being happy, they enjoyed being together, and they learned more about the home. And they're not in schools being regulated or taught things that really um, conflict with the family and the home. And they start developing relationships with each other, and they start getting more creative. And all the creative stuff was gone. I mean, all the rubber stamps and card supplies just empty at these places that I go to. But one thing with transportation and communication is worship is involved in that. You can go to worship, to go gather together to go to worship. So when you try to shut off communication, then people won't worship together. That will be the next thing that will happen. But the way the state also did it was they claimed that they were shutting down all the churches, and you weren't allowed to go to worship. And so what happened was, you get a congregation, let's say, of 50 or 100 people, all staying in their homes worshiping. Then you have 50 congregations instead of 50 people in one spot. You have it spread all over the town. And so what they did was they just increased the congregations, increased the churches, people everywhere worshiping at home, and increased the ability for the father and mother to teach their children the Word of God. And that has more of an impact on a child than a teacher, because a child will be most like the people that are teaching him. And so really, you've got to look on the good side of this. It really, really helped. Also, people are keeping their homes better, and women are sewing clothes, and not because and they're doing it in a very professional ways. That women always wanted to do this, but without the time to do it, it was harder. So things are looking better, and everything looks so good. So ladies, let me see. Oh, yes, I want to talk to you about something. This is political. If you'd like to go now, you may. As you know, I'm not a believer in the political stuff that's going on and being promoted. And one thing is with the shutdown of business. I told you, people don't have to shut down their business without a court order, but they do it because if you decide to stay in business, you have to be regulated to all these rules and all the state's rules. You have to have a loudspeaker with all the propaganda coming out of it, and you have to also bark at your customers and snap at people and tell them to stand back behind the red line or the blue line, and then in order to keep from poor customer relations, which in America that's very important to us. The customer has to like the product, like the store they're shopping in. They have to be treated nice or they won't come back. And the customer is your salary. So in order to keep good customer relationships, some businesses just decided to shut down. They didn't want to follow all those rules. And the rules are just miserable. And you feel like you're going through a customs, you're going through customs at the airport when you go into a store, because they have to follow all that in order to stay in business. But where I was going with this was there are lots of people that in certain states, like in Texas and in Michigan and other places, decide to get in their cars and go do a big rally and surround the Capitol in these cars and, block off a whole bunch of areas. You know something? I think the two places that they are trying to shut you down are the two places which you ought to change. In other words, they don't want you to have a business and they don't want you to go out. So they don't want you to open your business. So open your business and people go shopping. Those are the two ways that you can change things. You're not going to change it sitting in your car, because you're going to have to find a bathroom, you're going to have to find a place to stay, a place to eat, a place to find gas, and it's not going to. Those people in the capitals, these governors, they don't care. They don't care about that. They just want you shut down. And they don't want you having a business, and they don't want you shopping or going around to any kind of other social things, because they don't want you to be together. And so those are the things that you should do. Always live your freedom. And of course at home, the freedom is just limitless. If you're home, don't feel that you're shut down, because you now have freedom. There's no one telling you what to do, when to do it, and how to spend your day, and also get lots of rest and restore your health. That's how they shot themselves in the foot. Everybody's healthier. They're out riding their bikes, and everybody is happier. So instead of, Mr. S had something in a sermon years ago, and he had given an illustration of a historical, I don't know who it was. It was a world leader back in the day, before, like after Christ, and the Christians were making inroads in society, and this leader said that he could not understand why the more they persecuted the Christians, the more they multiplied and spread. And Mr. S says, yes, in other words, the more you kill us, the more we live. So just, live, live, live. Let's see, just check over my notes a little bit and see what else I need to. Oh, I want to tell you one exciting. Oh, I've got some books to read to you today too. And I want to show you what I bought at Hobby Lobby, a truck. And that's to remind me that when you see trucks going by, and they have goods and products in them, that life hasn't shut down. Excuse me, got this a little bit too far away. I wanted to tell you about altered cards. All the cards and the greeting cards and stuff seem to be depleted till the next supply comes along. So I went through some of the old cards. You get some for free in the mail, and you get some in a box, and there's some left over that you never used. And the ones that weren't used were the Christmas cards, and I needed an anniversary card. So I thought about, people have begun to alter things. I mean, this started years ago where they would alter a card. So I had this beautiful card, and that was the only one that it was quite big and had an envelope. One of the reasons that cards are so nice is they come with envelopes. You don't have to go hunt an envelope from some other part of your house. And the card was a beautiful blue dove with a beautiful blue ribbon, and it had a border around the card. There was nothing on the front, no words on the front, just this beautiful dove. And on the inside it said, "May this special time bring you joy." And then at the bottom it said "Merry Christmas." So I just took a piece of paper, piece of fancy paper, and I glued over that, cut it out, glued it over that, and put anniversary on it. And so they got a Christmas card for anniversary. So my mother taught me in the olden days that if you like the card, but it didn't say the right thing, you just cover, if it said happy birthday but you meant something else, or if it said happy Valentine's Day and you wanted it for a birthday, you just covered up the greeting and you just changed it. So if she liked the card Even if it was an anniversary card, if she liked the roses on it or something, she would change it to happy birthday and send it. So you can do whatever you want. Okay, where do I start? I have 3 books I want to review to you today. This one is called, just let me find out where it is that I want to go. I looked for this I was standing in a bookstore with a friend a couple years ago, and I was looking at this magazine that was there called Molly Makes. And usually you can't open those because they have a plastic bag around them, but this one was open. Someone had opened it, I guess, as a sample and shown it in the front. And it had the cutest little children's purse in it that was shaped like an English cottage. And I looked and looked at it and I thought, no, I won't get that. I think it was quite expensive. Here in the U.S., the price is a little different. And there it is. And so then I regretted it, of course. And Mr. S always upset with me. He says, if you see something you like, go ahead and get it. And then if later on you change your mind, you can give it to someone else or resell it. And of course, I've always been, hanging on to the penny and don't realize, he's right. Because when you go back, it won't be there. So I came home and I searched for it on the web and I found it. And I got it. I wanted to show you this cottage. And on the inside, you open it up and there's a little house inside. And the doll goes inside of the bed and you can slip the doll inside of various things. So I thought that was really, really cute. And I haven't made it, but I like to have it. So, and Mr. S took he copied it off for me on his printer so that I would have the pattern, and I haven't made it yet, but I just thought it was really cute. Now we would, when we first started homeschooling, we would take anything like this and just ask the children, what could you learn from this? Even if, even the boys could learn something from it, how to make a pattern, how to make a pattern for anything, even if it was for woodworking. As a matter of fact, this one, the doll's house, has a little bathtub in there with bubbles coming out of it. I just thought it was so cute. I don't know if, and I'd really like to make it. It takes a lot of felt, those felt squares. I don't have any felt, but I think I'd probably do it with something else. And then the other book I want to show you is Gifts for Giving by the Gooseberry Patch. And I think it probably was for Christmas, but what I liked about them is they had little hints at the end of every chapter down at the bottom that says, arrange friendship scone mix, packages of tea and coffee, and small jars of jam and honey on a serving tray, just right for a housewarming gift. Now, a housewarming gift used to be if someone moved in near you in your neighborhood and you would take them a basket full of goodies. And but you can give a housewarming gift anytime. You can send it, you can leave it on their front porch, and you can give a gift to anybody anytime for any reason. Now, Nifty Gifties, there was also a little book they made out of this called Nifty Gifties, and it was how to make things from your home that you would make a gift out of. So I want to read the list of this. But I also am sad that Gooseberry Patch doesn't have their catalog anymore. That was the cutest catalog, and the drawings on it were so beautiful. I don't even think I saved one. I wish I had. They were just the most artistic, beautiful, beautiful catalogs I have ever seen. But they have really nice line drawings in these books. So this one is called Gifts for Giving. I'll put a picture of that on there for you. And I want to read you the list of the gifts that you can make. Basic melt and pour soap. I went to buy these kits of how you can make soap, and there was these boxed kits at Walmart on making just about everything from soap to clay to toys to quilts to everything, and there were all these boxes. And I was looking at it and thinking, that's a good idea, all these boxed, like they'd make great gifts. So I decided, I thought about it, and I went back, they were gone. they left so fast. They left the shelf so fast. Beaded flower pot candle. Bon appetit dog biscuits. Yes, there's a recipe in here for dog biscuits. Catnip cutout cookies. There's a recipe for cat cookies. Cinnamon apple ornaments. Now those, I tried those. Those are wonderful. They actually worked. And the smell, the scent was just absolutely wonderful. Festive wrapped soap. Fresh scented drawer liners. Garden herb candle. Gingerbread mini cookies and gift box. Heavenly bubble bath soap. Herbal oatmeal bath sachet. Honey vanilla lip balm. Lavender drawer sachet. Lemon fresh laundry rinse. Meow munchies. Natural orange clove candles. Old-fashioned lilac perfume. Orange coconut creamy lotion. Pampering body powder. Pepperminty lip balm. Polka dot button frame. Pressed flower candle. That's another thing you can do, is you can actually make a flower press out of corrugated cardboard, and you have to put some kind of a bolt and screw in it to hold it together, and you put tissue paper or some kind of acid-free paper in it, and learn to press flowers, and you can later on get them out and put them on stationery or cards, or use them for scrapbook. Raspberry bath salts, refreshing face splash, rosebud flower frame, scented personal stationery, silky smooth body powder, strawberries and cream milk bath, Victorian rosemary pomander. I want to look up the refreshing face splash and see what that is. Page 210. Okay. 3/4 cup rose water, 2 tablespoons witch hazel. Now that's kind of an astringent that you can get at the dollar store. Combine ingredients and store it with a lidded bottle. Attach a gift tag with instructions. And scented personal stationery, I'm curious about that, so I'm going to read that one to you. A box of stationery, well, that would just be paper. I like to buy cotton paper or linen paper at Walmart. You can sometimes get it, and it's a resume paper. Corrugated cardboard, 10 drops of honeysuckle essential oil. Never seen that before. And cotton fabric. Remove stationery from box. Cut cardboard to fit the bottom of the box. Pour honeysuckle drops on the ridged side of the cardboard. Yeah, that layered cardboard, corrugated cardboard. Wrap cardboard in fabric. Place wrapped cardboard in the bottom of the box. Replace stationery in the box and close. Keep the box closed for 1 week before giving. Now this reminds me of books, old books. I've got an old book here. I say get your books out every now and then and just, flip through them and leave them open, because they will start to smell bad after a while and kind of break down. You can take soda bicarb and just sprinkle them on the pages. Close the pages, put more on the next page, and the next page, and the next page, and just leave it there for a week or so. And then take it outside and let it all out. And it'll refresh sometimes an old book. Now this book here is called Calico Chronicle by Betty J. Mills. And what it is, now this is not an easy book to read, but I wanted to tell you about it because I like fabric. And what it is, it's about the women in the days when there was a blockade between the North and the South, and the South could not get to the cotton mills and get the fabric for their clothes. And they still had some of their own cotton mills, but for some reason the blockade stopped them from getting a lot of supplies. And I want to show you also, I'll probably try to put a picture here of this, the things that they did to make up for the lack of supplies. Like they couldn't get lace and the things that, and it also has museum pictures of women in their calico clothes. It was called Calico Chronicles. And it's all about what they did with their cottons and their clothing during the Civil War, when there was a blockade to some of their supplies. And they were very interested. They invented things and created their own fashion. So without the fashion influence of the designers, they were able to, in Texas, create their own fashions and their own designs. And they had several tricks for renewing old dresses and old fabrics. And one of the things they did is if a seam in a dress became frayed or a hem became frayed, they figured out how to sew on other materials over it to cover it. And one of the things they did was the rutching, which was gathering fabric and then sewing it over something, and it developed into kind of a style. And so I wanted to read a little bit out of this before we go. I've already been talking for an hour, so you can go. A never-dying optimism surely must have been an important virtue possessed by women who pioneered the early frontiers of America. There is no question they had to keep up or go under. Keeping up, both emotionally and physically, necessitated perseverance and hope. How did these pioneer women dress? On the prairie, in the hill country, below the Cap Rock. I was going to look that up, Cap Rock. I'll have to define that for you later. I have read this previously. On the plateaus, in the timberland around the bend of the Brazos. That's the Brazos River. That's where my father was baptized, in the Brazos River. Were they indifferent to the clothes they wore? While libraries were filled with accounts of the battles, Indian raids, land acquisition, and settlement of the West, little is recorded that verbally or visually documents what the women wore. There is good reason for this void. Examples of the inelegant dress of the people who stuck it out are extremely rare. Necessity and resourcefulness caused many of these garments to be worn out or converted into some other useful object. Random clues do exist in diaries, chronicles, reminiscences, biographies, portraits, and occasional photographs that attest to the fact that even the women in desolate settings were concerned with what they wore and how they looked. They clung hopefully to a measure of calico and what it symbolized. The title Calico Chronicle was chosen because of the significant position that calico held throughout most of the 19th century. Early settlers and homesteaders seldom made a supply list or record of purchases without including this plainly woven cotton fabric. Calico had its origin in India in the 15th century as a fine luxury fabric named for its point of origin, Calicut, and originally it was a fine white cotton cloth. Later, designs were painted on the fabric, then hand-printed. By the late 18th century, the first calicos printed in America were produced with engraved cylinders and were still expensive and much sought-after fabrics in the early 1800s, so expensive that only the wealthy could afford them. Decades later, when production became more bountiful, calico remained in favor for its practicality, comfort, and beauty to the lady on the frontier, whether in Texas on the high plains or on the west coast. Its symbolism goes hand in hand with the former struggle for a badge of respectability, which was to make a decent appearance. That is why we love it so much, isn't it? My sewing room is full of calicos. We love it. There's something, it's like the reason people like to go camping or have a tent is it brings them back to their roots, to their origins, to their ancestors, to experience what life was like for them. It's kind of like honoring your past, and that's the way it is with sewing and calicos. Development of the frontiers in Texas was clearly unique, in spite of its similarities to other regions. Barriers such as the Indian Territory, Mexicans' rule, and the struggle for independence. Now remember, Texas used to have 6 nations that ran Texas. And remember, it's called Six Flags Over Texas. So they had Spain and they had other countries that ruled over Texas at one time or another. So they have a very rich heritage. While early colonization was in the Gulf coastal region, in and around San Antonio, farther inland The distances to supply sources were so great that settlement was slow. The establishment of military forts at scattered points served to offer reinforcement for some adventuresome pioneers, but it was not until the railroad came. My father called it the railroad. I don't know why they do that, but it's the railroad. It's not until the railroad came to the scene of the 1880s that movement began towards the north central part of the state and the plateaus below the Cap Rock. I'm going to look that word up. By the time El Paso was attracting homesteaders from California, however, settlement on the South Plains and in so-called West Texas was almost 2 decades later. A brief resume of the settlement of Texas, accompanied by maps, has been included to give the reader a preview. This is just such an interesting book to show the designs of the women and the things that they designed themselves. So they were cut off from the big style and design fashion houses, and so they created their own, and which was very, very interesting. And some people have preserved it and saved it. So ladies, if you have time, please leave a comment. If not, don't spend any time doing that, because I know you have work to do. Please have yourself a cup of tea. Be sure to pray today, and be sure to go to bed when you're sleepy, when you're tired, and then don't watch any news media. Try to see what it's like for a day. Just try to see what it's like for a day without it. See if you wake up happy. Try different things. Be sure to floss your teeth, eat right, and to drink tea, and make sure you drink your water, and just all those things that you need to be doing, and pray as you go, and have a lovely day, and make your house better than ever. So I'll see you next time. Bye.